You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Franku. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Everyone, Dr. Tudor Franku. I'm back at Stellar Success Podcast with a great guest today, all the way from Georgia, Dr. Franky Davis. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, and I want to warn, I would say, the audience that you are a very experienced medical professional and also a great, successful real estate investor. And we're going to pick your brain on different things today.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. I don't know about great, but I'm doing the best I can.
Absolutely. I'll try to showcase that. First of all, Dr. Davis, let's start with a little bit of past. Can you just kind of outline for the audience, your beginnings? How did you start in medical career, and a little bit along the way, and where are you now?
Absolutely. So I graduated medical school in 2016. At that time, my wife and I were married and had our first son when I was a third-year medical student. And we made our decision that we wanted to pursue orthopedics. I've wanted to pursue orthopedic surgery for a long time now, and so had the opportunity to make that dream come true and do my residency in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We graduated in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 2021, and that was a 5-year residency program for those who don't know the orthopedics track. And about my third year of residency, we made the decision at that time that we wanted to move back to my wife's hometown, which is a small town in Southwest Georgia, rural medicine, where I would have the opportunity to practice general orthopedic surgery. We also, at that time, when we made the decision that Southwest Georgia was where we would be moving, I knew that the practice wouldn't be exactly how I wanted to practice orthopedics necessarily, because the options weren't fantastic. It had a lot of positives, but not a lot of positives with regards to the ability to pursue private practice and have ancillary revenue opportunities and the opportunity to buy real estate in medicine. And so I knew that I would have to maybe pivot a little bit. And that was also the time where I decided that the pursuit of medicine the pursuit of real estate independent from medicine was something I wanted to dig into.
So you basically had this idea in your mind when you graduated medical school that you're gonna start investing in real estate.
So it kind of actually hit me when I was about a second year resident. I've always been fairly entrepreneurial throughout undergraduate.
What made you think of this?
It's it's something I've been interested in for a long time. My father's fairly entrepreneurial minded. He's a dentist and ended up not pursuing a lot of the things that he had said he wished he would have pursued. He was kind of an analysis paralysis kind of scenario and never actually made the leap. So I always told myself that I would try to be as educated as I could be on topics that I wanted to pursue. And then I would allow that education to push me through the analysis paralysis to take action. And I think that's one of the most important steps I try to speak to people about is action is probably the most important thing that you can do, because you're not always going to know all the answers and you're not always going to make the exact right step, but you'll be able to pivot and learn throughout that process. And I pursued things that were entrepreneurial throughout my undergraduate career. I had a landscaping business at that time. I fixed electronics to try to make money so that I could go and do what I wanted to do. And that just sort of was parlayed later in my career into the desire to become educated in real estate. And I got more serious about it at the end of my second year of residency. And we actually were able to purchase our first property midway through my third year of residency. So I was still a resident when we made our first acquisition.
That's awesome. Awesome. It's kind of I would say a weird thing for people to hear, because, when you think of medical doctors, you think of like very kind of, boxed individual.
Mm-hmm.
You go to medical school,
For sure.
you learn a lot. You have a lot of, science in you, and you
Right.
do things a certain way, kind of obsessive compulsive
Very much.
individual that, you want to practice medicine that way. And all of a sudden you go into a field that it's kind of a ready, fire, aim, and you do stuff and then you figure it out. It's very counterintuitive. But I see more and more people doing this in our field,
Mm-hmm.
in medical field.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it's the thing that pushed you out of the comfort zone and kind of pursue this real estate hobby, so to speak?
Right. I think it was a sense of more pressure than I expected when I was in residency. And I think medical students are feeling that more and more. And I don't want to start sounding woe is me as a physician. We're doing fantastic. But the financial scenario physicians are being thrust into is different now than it has been in the past. People have higher and higher debt positions. They're looking at 250,000 to 500,000 and even more sometimes of debt. You haven't made any money until you're 31, 32. So your time value of money from a saving perspective is non-existent. I had no money saved for retirement. I had two kids, or a kid and another kid on the way. We had no money saved for college, and I just felt anxiety about that. I also knew my tax position would be high. And when I started doing the math to allow me to get to a point in my life where I was financially independent, was further and further away and almost unachievable. I couldn't make the math make sense. And so the desire to pursue an asset class that would do multiple things, it would allow me some passive revenue without my active involvement. It had some appreciation potential. It had the ability to depreciate the assets and potentially declare loss that I may or may not, depending on how I had everything structured, be able to take that off of my earned income. Those things were the reasons why I became more and more interested. And the more I dug into it, the more benefit I was able to see. And that's why we continued to pursue that.
So you were still, pursuing your medical career. You got into orthopedics. You start practicing, and in the same time you developed this real estate sideline in parallel to your medical practice, right?
Right.
How did you decide where to go in real estate? Because there's so many things you can do in real estate. And when you say real estate, people understand, oh, I'm just buying a house or I'm just buying a rental. But there's so many things you can do in real estate. How did you decide what you want to do in real estate?
Very, very overwhelming. So I agree 100%. The way I tried to break it down is in the beginning, I kind of casted a wide net with regards to my education. I read several books on different asset classes. I looked at multifamily. I looked at single family house investing. I looked at things like self-storage, mobile home park investing, and commercial. And with those things, I wanted to figure out what gave me the highest value add potential. I wanted to be able to step in and add value in the short term and not only rely on appreciation. I also wanted the ability to manage it in a way that either my wife and I could set up in an automated manner, or I could outsource the management to a property manager. And I wanted the ability to declare some depreciation. I wanted the ability, as we referenced earlier, to the tax implications of these decisions were probably one of the most important portions of my decision. And so additionally, I wanted to invest within a certain radius of where I would eventually be living. And this actually eventually became me investing remotely and being much more comfortable investing remotely, because I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time, and we were investing in Southwest Georgia within 3 hours of where I was going to eventually live with my criteria on the front end. Now, I don't necessarily think I would be that rigid just because of what I've learned, but I pursued multiple asset classes with brokers. I set up a buy box, which was basically a description of what I was looking for. And those descriptions were variable. One was commercial, one was self-storage, and one was single family, small multifamily. And the first opportunity that came down the line was a duplex that fit a lot of the criteria that I wanted them to meet. And also I had vetted and found a strong local property manager that was going to allow me to sort of manage them remotely and be able to pursue what I wanted to pursue. So that's kind of a long-winded answer. And it's a very complex question trying to decide what your asset class is going to be. But I think if you can, first of all, cost of entry. I mean, you can't come in and buy a $5 million commercial property if you're just getting started. Most likely, some people can, most likely not. So you have to get started at some point. Then it's what you're interested in, I would say, is probably number two. You're going to have to read a lot about the asset class. And I wanted to be excited by it. I wanted to be excited about not only the financial implications of the decision, but also the ability to provide a service. So I think providing somebody with a reasonable, nice place to live that is just under market rental value, and you're still able to make money and you're able to satisfy your long-term investing goals, and then also provide a product that gives somebody pride of rentership and pride of where they live. Pardon me. Dadgummit. Might have to cut that. I'm sorry, man. I thought I had it on airplane mode. Apologies. So those were the goals that I wanted to pursue. And I think small multifamily satisfied that for me very quickly. And I was able to see that my tenants were happy with where they lived, and they were happy with the product we were able to provide at a reasonable price. And it made it more enjoyable than just trying to make a dollar. And I think if you can satisfy that, then your desire to stay and dedicate bandwidth while you're also, working 50, 60 hours a week in medicine will help sort of mitigate some of that burnout that can come alongside that.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I think a lot of people need to understand that, even if you do real estate full-time or part-time, I think the focus needs to be, like you said, in the quality of housing that you're providing to people, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with families, you're dealing with kids, you're dealing with people like you, like your family that, want to have a nice place to live. And as long as you provide that to them, they'll be staying in your property for longer term, and being good tenants. So I think that's a great point. But I want to continue on your journey. So you finished residency, you started real estate. What happens next?
So as we signed our contract as a third year, and so we very much knew that we were secure at least for 3 years. I signed a 3-year contract initially, which allowed me to really commit to the location. I wanted to make sure that I had the opportunity to build my practice for 3 years, to see where I would be before any sort of contract negotiation from an orthopedic standpoint took place. So when we knew that, we sort of doubled down and began buying properties in and around the surrounding area. Actually, before we finished residency, we had purchased 2 duplexes, 5 single-family houses, and a 48-unit self-storage facility. And then we moved down and started my orthopedic career. And so I've been in practice now 4 years, and I'm more than blessed. My kids are doing great. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. They love it here. They're doing fantastic in school. My wife's plugged in and enjoying it, and does a lot of volunteer work and a lot of community service opportunities, also while helping me with our real estate portfolio. And so we've really kind of blossomed into the rural lifestyle. It's been nice.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. And also you have this side income right now from real estate that can help you make some decisions for your family in terms of buy back your time.
Right.
Like Dan Martell says, right?
Yeah.
By the way, that's a great book to recommend to people, right?
Absolutely.
Go get it. Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. I want to go back into your mindset a little bit when you started this whole thing. I had a lot of colleagues of mine and a lot of people I talked to that it's hard for them to figure out how to start in this field in real estate, especially if they're in medical profession. It's definitely an out of the comfort zone for some people to start buying properties. What do you think some habits or routines that you have and you had contributed to you kind of think outside of the box to make you start investing?
I think, and this isn't anything that's unique to me, but I think I sort of took on the problem similar to how I digested, large amounts of information in medical school and even residency. It's just to try to break it down piece by piece. So in the very beginning, I knew I had to become much more educated. Otherwise, I was doing myself a disservice to dive into something financially that could potentially have a large downside loss potential. So I began that by just utilizing my time that I had available, which was driving to and from the hospital. I would be on rounds, listening to audiobooks and listening to things like podcast episodes. The Bigger Pockets podcast was really influential early in my educational career. And then I would just dictate notes that would be teaching me those things. And the topics just vaguely in my mind that I wanted to know is how to target a macro market from a macroeconomic standpoint to understand if you would be able to step in and compete. 2 would be, how do you vet deals? How do you start a deal flow process so that you can see enough properties to know what a good deal is to then underwrite the deal? Well, then you have to know how to underwrite the deal. How do you run the numbers? How do you know if a deal is profitable and makes sense? Once you feel like you understand those things, then you have to put a team in place. That's brokers, real estate agents that can send you listings, things like an attorney so that you can have contractual arrangements drawn up and understand that you're, from a litigious standpoint, protected, because we have a lot to lose from our income potential if you potentially got sued. So I wanted to make sure I was buttoning that up. I'm not willing to sacrifice my primary revenue generation potential for this future growth opportunity. And then we tried to make sure that I had a strong accountant so that an accountant could help me navigate this in a stepwise fashion, particularly the tax side. And then once I became educated enough, we decided to go ahead and step in a limited capacity, trying to make sure that I mitigated the large risk problems like capital expenditure things that would hit me in the beginning. And we were able to do it. So I think that line is probably different for everyone. I encourage people who don't have a ton of time, they aren't really willing to do the grunt work on the front end to either find a potential partner that's outside of medicine that you could partner with, and they could take on kind of that educational bandwidth for your first several deals. I think that's a fantastic arrangement for physicians because it allows you to step in as a money provider, which physicians typically are money heavy, education not very heavy on the real estate space. So they can add value to a partnership arrangement by bringing in money. And then once you are able to become educated enough to understand the deal flow process, then you can buy your first property on your own. And it's not for everyone. I apologize, but I think, a lot of people go down the rabbit hole, and you may see this too, and realize that buying property on their own is not for them. And that's okay. And there are other opportunities to invest in real estate, like syndicated opportunities, real estate investment trusts, even having, partnership arrangements where you are a passive investor in a group of individuals that manage and buy and that kind of thing. So there are ways to be involved where you're not necessarily boots on the ground. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. What do you think about mentorship?
I think mentorship's a slippery slope. I offer mentorship personally, and I approach it as a slippery slope, letting people know that I want to make sure that my value add to that arrangement is critical throughout the whole process. So I think if you can find the right mentor that gives you one-on-one time for a reasonable value and allows you to have efficient learning and sort of hold your hand through the process, and you have the ability to afford it, I think it's a fantastic way to become educated and expedite your education. Not everybody wants to listen to 30 books or read 30 books and put in the grunt work to become educated the slow way. So I think it can bypass that quite a bit. I personally have utilized mentorship in filmmaking, in social media, in marketing, and tried to utilize those things to expedite my education. And I felt like it's been a critical tool.
Yeah, I think there's certain advantages of doing that. Like you said, if you
Right.
can afford having someone who can teach you faster than you can,
Right.
that's worth the money. Um, Now, I'm sure in your career, medical and investing, you had probably some setbacks and some
Absolutely.
failures because, that's how we learn. We learn from
Right.
failures. Can you give us an example of something that didn't work out, put you on the ground and you had to come back up?
I can give two examples, one earlier in my investing career and one recently. So I'm kind of navigating one right now. So in the beginning, what I'll say that my wife and I did fairly well is we were pretty risk averse. So we were not really willing to overextend ourselves from a deal metrics perspective because I was overextending myself financially by taking out no money down financing. I was highly leveraged in the beginning. I had good future income potential because we leaned on my orthopedic contract to secure that financing, but that's more risky. To be a high leverage position in a cash flow producing asset that could become non-cash flow producing is a higher risk endeavor. So we were very, very conservative on our underwriting. We would underwrite 40% expenses, 10 to 15% vacancy. We would lowball offer. And so I made a bunch of offers in the beginning. And what I would say is I definitely bypassed some deals that would have been fantastic deals that I would never bypass now. And I would consider that a mistake in the beginning, but an understood mistake because of my risk aversion at the time. So that's what I would say in the beginning. More recently, so I would say probably 3.5 years, we bought a commercial property, and we bought that commercial property, and I allowed the influence of my property manager at the time to sort of encourage me to buy the property. The metrics made sense, the number made sense, but I didn't undergo the due diligence that I needed to. They had previously managed it, had said it had good bones. I forewent a large expense commercial inspection, which probably would have been $7,500. And we have subsequently kind of gotten bit because of that fact. We've had a decent amount of unexpected expenses associated with flooding and with inappropriate drainage behind the property. We had a hurricane. When the East Coast was hit hard with hurricanes at the end of last year, we took a big.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
Big hit, and I had some units flood, and so the good thing is we saved for capital expenditure, and I had a large nest egg saved up to pay for that, but we had to pay about $75,000 out of pocket at the end of last year for one property, and that was a big hit. And I think if I would have done a little bit better, kind of following my check boxes and not allowing them to influence me to take it a little less seriously, I think I would have made that mistake. We're going to be fine, but that was probably the biggest one I've been hit with so far.
Yeah, we all learn from our
Yeah.
mistakes, right? Buffett said that if you don't figure out how to make money while you sleep, you're gonna work until you die.
Right.
Did you figure that out?
So I think that's kind of exactly the feeling that I had as a second year resident when I was thinking, okay, I'll be working at a highly, relatively highly compensated rate for my time, but if my time is always exchanged for the money, no matter what the rate is, then that's not an efficient use of my revenue generating potential. And I am very family oriented. I really enjoy spending time with my family and trying to prioritize that. And I just felt like, especially in residency, I was not able to do that at all. My balance of family to work was not reasonable. And I wanted to make sure that as I transitioned into my early years of practice, that I would try to lean more towards balancing personally and from a family perspective quite a bit healthier, with the goal of improving that over time. And I just didn't see working like a hamster on a wheel that I would ever change that. I would continue to take call at the same rate. I would continue to feel pressure to be productive and take time away from my family to satisfy those productivity metrics. And I just wanted to make sure that in the beginning, if I'm not able to balance my work-life balance like I would want to, that 10, 15 years in, I've improved the opportunity to do that versus when I start. And I felt like real estate was a great way for me to make sure I was moving in that direction if I wasn't able to do it sooner rather than later.
So at this point, would you say that you're going to develop your real estate investing career more than your orthopedic career?
Not yet. I think there will be a time where that takes place. I'm very blessed. My orthopedic practice here has really grown quite a bit, and so it's doing well. And so I haven't gotten to the point where I can say, my passive income potential outpaces my orthopedic revenue generation potential. So I haven't been able to walk away from orthopedics, and don't think I will for a little while. Not only that, I really enjoy orthopedics. I love patient care. I love my clinic days, and I enjoy, hugging on people and taking care of people in my community. I enjoy doing surgery. I just think my exit strategy for medicine will be a transition to practicing a way that is less stressful. It'll allow me to do more cases that I want to do, take less call, take more vacation. And like I said, just have a healthier work-life balance. I don't necessarily think it means walking away from orthopedics completely for me, although it may. We'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good goal to have, right? To
For sure.
at least build your real estate investing income up to that level. Now, with all the experience that you have so far, and challenges you've been through, if you would go back to your 18-year-old self, what kind of advice would you give to yourself?
I think probably I feel very, very blessed. I really do. I feel like, my life as I've transitioned out of being a young person into going through undergraduate school and medical school and residency has been pretty much in line with my plan, which I'm thankful for. And my family life has gone great, to the point at which I feel a little anxious about how good it's gone at times. What I would say is I'm not a very patient person. I sometimes get frustrated with my lack of ability to make things happen as fast as I want them to happen.
What do you mean? You're a surgeon.
I know, and it just is what it is, and I get frustrated with the pace at which things happen. And so I would probably tell my 18-year-old self to just let the process happen, work hard, smell the roses, enjoy it, and everything's going to work out. So that's where I am now. It's hard to feel that when you're young and you're trying to make it happen, but now that it's happened for me, I feel very blessed, and wish I could whisper in my 18-year-old self's ear and just be like, do what you're doing. You're doing right. It's going to work out.
That's great. That's great. Now, if you think about your, short-term plans and long-term plans, what do you have in mind? What do you think this thing is going to go?
So it's recent, probably in the last 6 months, that answer has changed quite a bit. And I don't really know for sure, because some opportunities have presented themselves in recent months to a year that have kind of changed my trajectory and my potential future horizon. So originally I thought I would try to build a net worth or a portfolio under management of around $5 million. That was my goal. And we surpassed that about a year and a half ago. So that goal changed. Then my goal was, all right, well, I want to try to put people's money together, and I want to deploy capital at a rate that's higher than my ability to accrue capital on my own. Even though our growth has been rapid, I would say relatively, my ability to grow is limited by my ability to make money as an orthopedist, because a bank is only going to leverage me money based on my ability to bring money to the table, either in the form of equity from value add or in the form of cash and my ability to make money. So that has a ceiling. So then my goal was to try to create a funnel to allow physicians who are interested in investing in real estate, but not necessarily interested in doing it on their own, to invest with me and then deploy with efficient operators that have similar goals, both from a product offering and from a value add perspective. And so we put a fund together and deployed capital for the first time at the end of last year. So that's one goal. And I hope to grow that pretty significantly over the next 5 years. I also hope to grow my online presence quite a bit. That's become a new goal with the Instagram platform and the online course mentorship program. And so I don't really have a hard goal for that, because it's started as kind of a brainchild and I don't really know where I want to take it, but it's been a really fun journey so far. And I want to make sure to dedicate bandwidth to that. And then I also want to continue to grow our real estate portfolio personally, to the point at which the growth allows me to nearly mitigate my tax burden. That's probably goal number one, but also have set our new net worth goals a little bit higher than we originally thought. So we're going to continue to kind of push all those things forward the best we can.
That's great. Seems like a good lineup for the year.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
And you mentioned tax burden, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially in our profession. That more and more people look for opportunities to decrease their tax bill, because that's probably the highest expense that we have in our life. And there's several options to do that. Like you mentioned, a couple of them, and I think more people should look into how they can do this, because it's possible. There's certain things that you need to do. And I remember, Tom Woolwright has a great book out there about taxes that I recommend people to read. And he has a typical phrase: if you want to change your tax, you change your facts.
Yeah.
So, what can you say about this topic? Because I think it's an important topic for people to look at how they can legally decrease their tax burden in medical profession through real estate.
This is huge. I'm thankful that you wanted to dig into this further, because this was probably the primary reason why I focused on real estate, because I was trying to figure out how to not pay 50% taxes. I just couldn't get over that when I was trying to do the math on my retirement contribution and our ability to recover financially from the cost of medical school and residency in my mind at the time. And we came across two strategies early in this process, one being real estate professional status, and the other being the short-term rental tax loophole. And those are the two strategies that I've discussed the most. Basically, and I'll just crash course real quick. I'm sure the listeners have been exposed to these terms before, but the real estate professional status is when you, or usually your spouse who is not working full-time, dedicates 750 hours a year to your real estate portfolio, and that allows them to declare passive loss off of your active earned income if you're a married filing joint arrangement. Now, there's some things from either how you're compensated, 1099 versus W-2, that can murky the water, so an accountant is definitely critical, but that allowed us to accelerate depreciation on our assets and take that off of my orthopedic salary, to the point at which we've significantly reduced our tax burden in a way that is legal and satisfies the current tax law for what the real estate professional status designation means. Now, like I said, I think having an accountant on the front end, so you're not reacting from a tax plan perspective, you're proactively planning the whole year. We do that. Every acquisition I make is discussing with my accountant on the front end to know that it fits our plan. And then you have to make sure that you document in the case of an audit. That way, you want to be making sure that you're satisfying things legally so that you don't have to pay penalties, but also that it doesn't significantly disrupt your ability to continue to confidently grow your portfolio. And I think an audit would probably do that, to me personally and to most. So that's how we've gone about it. Now, the short-term tax rental loophole is another fantastic way for active employees, so W-2 physicians who are high income earning, if they're able to dedicate, and I haven't looked into this in a while, so I may miss the numbers slightly, but I think it's 100 hours a year of material participation. Then you can do the same thing, do what's called a cost segregation study, which allows you to depreciate parts of an asset on an accelerated schedule to be able to manipulate your tax bracket and decrease your tax burden. So I think those terms can be foreign to people on the front end, and that the foreign nature of the terms make people feel nervous and make people feel like it's probably not allowed or not legal. That's not the case. It is allowed. It is legal. If you follow the steps appropriately and you have a tax professional who's buttoning things up for you, then I think it's more than worth pursuing, because like you said just a second ago, it's our largest expense. And if you can mitigate that and dedicate that to your future self's net worth accrual, that's a massive change.
Yeah, only for that, I think it's worth the investment
Huge.
in time and money, just to if you can decrease your tax burden,
Absolutely.
that's by itself a passive income.
For sure. And it also makes you more of a competitive buyer in the space, because you can tolerate a little bit narrower margins. For me, I don't need the money from my portfolio now. So if my portfolio is able to cash flow and float, even if I had to supplement it a little bit, then I'm fine with that, because it gave me a 30%, 35% discount on my money. So I can tolerate a little bit of a narrower margin. Now, I still think you should try to purchase good deals, but it allows you to be a little bit more competitive in the space if you're in a competitive market.
Yeah, I agree. Let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit about you as a person.
Okay.
How do you keep up with your daily life? You're practicing physician. You're doing a real estate investing network and hobby on the side. You are a family man and take care of your kids and your wife. How is your time management going? What do you do for fitness? How do you eat? What kind of habits do you have to maintain yourself at this kind of level?
That's a great question. I think it's something that I struggle with, and I have a very regimented expectation of myself, and I fall short of that expectation quite often. But I think the ability to give yourself some grace but set high expectations allows you to achieve pretty impressive things, even if it's not exactly achieving the goal you set originally. So for example, my workout and fitness routine is I get up early in the morning around 5:15 every day, and I have a home gym set up that has created a convenient access to me for me to be able to exercise regularly. And my goal is to work out 4 days a week with a day of cardio. So 4 to 5 days a week of regimented weight training versus cardio every week. Now, I don't achieve that all the time. Sometimes it's 2 days a week, sometimes it's 3, but 3 days is better than 0 days. And I think having the goal and attempting to pursue it is worth it. And I'll kind of parlay that into other aspects of my life. I just do the best I can to create a schedule. I'm pretty regimented with regards to schedule and with regards to setting short-term goals on a daily to weekly to monthly to yearly basis. I think you can't tackle a large-scale problem until you break it down. And if you break it down, you're able to achieve a lot more in a given amount of time than you would if you were less organized. So I think organization is probably the number one thing. And then just do the best you can to check the boxes. Make sure that you're dedicating time to your family. For me, that's the number one priority. I want to make sure that I'm not achieving these goals at the expense of my family. And I would be lying if I said I don't cross that line sometimes. I definitely do. I'm probably more of a workaholic than some, but I try the best I can to protect that time so that I'm not encroaching upon it. And then I try to make sure that I'm maximizing my time away from my family. So even if I'm during a work day, for example, if I have turnover time between cases that's 45 minutes, then I'm going to make 3 phone calls and I'm going to, make sure that I'm catching up on all my clinic notes so that I don't have anything that's going to carry over into my home time. Just trying the best I can to manage everything together. And I think that's the way to do it.
That's awesome, man. If you would have to give a little piece of advice to someone who wants to do what you're doing right now, and you do a lot, what would that be?
I think the piece of advice I would give, and it probably would be what I say to myself if I was trying to start again, would be to take it slow and be patient with yourself. Don't get frustrated with yourself if everything doesn't happen smoothly and quickly, especially with the influence of online education and influencers and people who are saying, 18 months, I built a $5 million portfolio in addition to being a resident full time. That's daunting and overwhelming. And I also think it's an inappropriate misrepresentation of how that happened. That came with a lot of hard work, a lot of self-directed learning, a lot of time, a lot of failure, like you talked about earlier, and learning throughout the process. So I would just encourage people to the end goal is to get in the game. The end goal is not to get in the game perfectly. It's to make sure in 2 to 3 years you've done something more than you're doing now. And if that means buying one single family home and learning how to vet a tenant and get a tenant in there, then you've achieved something huge and you've generated confidence. And that confidence snowballs into a more successful next acquisition and an opportunity to network and partner with somebody who may bring you in on a large multifamily deal. It's just opportunity begets opportunity begets opportunity, and be open-minded and willing to pursue that. And I think patience with yourself is required. Otherwise, it's easy to get more burnout than you already are in medicine and feel like that you're unable to achieve anything. And I think that's where people have a hard time.
That's a great advice. Dr. Davis, thank you so much for being here. I think people will benefit a lot from this interview, and I hope to a lot of them will reach out to you. How can they get in touch with you, know more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to staying in touch and possibly maybe jumping on in the future for an update. Right now, probably the best way would be to reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Real Estate Investor MD. Franky Davis is my name. It'll come right up. Just shoot me a direct message, and I would love to communicate with you personally, jump on a 15-minute call to try to give you some advice or just network and get to know people. I love talking to physicians who are trying to take control of their financial situation, help them avoid burnout, spend more time with their families, take better care of their patients. I think that's something we should all be looking forward to trying to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And like you said, maybe we'll get the second episode later on in the year. See where you are.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Franku. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.